Hey guys, Mark here. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made around $28,000 in profit in the last 7 days. Not revenue, but in profit. You can see here revenue over the past 7 days is 86K. If we hop over into our main ad account here, I spent around $40,000 on ads. So after cost of goods, after everything, it's around $28,000 in profit. And I did that using something that I like to call profit maxing. Now, anytime people actually get into dropshipping, they typically make this mistake of trying to sell really cheap products, which is a terrible, terrible idea. They think that it's going to be easier if you sell products that are less expensive, or even worse, they sell a product and they're not really converting at the rate that they want to, and then they end up lowering their prices, right? And this is a terrible idea for so many different reasons, but the main misconception is this: people think that it's more difficult to sell products that are more expensive, but that's actually not true. I think the sweet spot for average order value and product that you're selling is around the $100 to $400 range, all right? If you're selling anything less than that, if your AOV is anything less than that, you're just not gonna make it. And if you don't think that's possible, well, that's why I'm creating this video in the first place. So what I like to do instead is this profit maxing kind of blueprint where you actually sell products that are relatively expensive. I actually think kind of the more expensive, the better. And the main way that you're able to do this is because you're controlling something through your marketing, through your copy, and through your specific funnel that you're running. And what you're gonna control is called your POV. This isn't point of view, this is your perception of value. So what most people don't understand, the noob dropshippers out there, what they don't understand is that you can control the perception of value around your product through your marketing. Instead of just selling some cheap thing and like ripping everybody's ads and just trying to make it profitable, it's a race to the bottom. You're just going to lose long term. What I do on the other hand is I build funnels that elevate the perception of value, that I can sell the same product as you for 2 to 3 times the price, all right? And that's what I want to show you guys in this video. Now, you've probably seen this before, but there's really kind of 2 ways that you can run funnels right now. First, you have what I call the basic bitch funnel, whereas you have your ad right here, whether that's on Facebook, whether that's on Instagram, TikTok, wherever, then you drive all that traffic directly to a product page, PDP for short, and then they go to the checkout page, they complete their purchase, right? And then they hit the thank you page. And that's kind of it. That's it at that point, right? This is the TYP, thank you page. At this point, the customer's gone. You'll probably never sell that customer again because you have a terrible business. And even worse, your average order value is very, very low. What I'm gonna show you guys in this video is how to construct a new type of funnel that I like to call the Chad funnel. Now, I've gone over this many times. I'm actually gonna specifically show you how to execute this at a psychological level, because that's really the thing that most people miss. It's not that this funnel is just gonna like immediately make you a millionaire overnight. That's obviously not gonna happen. But what can happen is if you control the perception of value the right way, you can sell more expensive products at the exact same rate, sometimes even at a higher rate when you set up this. So you're gonna have that same ad that you're running, but instead of driving traffic directly to a product page where it's just like sell, 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 immediately sell. Nobody likes being sold to in the first place, right? So I utilize that concept and I actually send people to a pre-sales page, specifically some type of advertorial page, all right? If you don't know what an advertorial is, it's simply a combination between an ad and an editorial. It looks like an article that some third-party person published completely separate from your company. And so it's almost like a really native UGC ad, like somebody's just hyping up your product through an emotional story and then converting all that mass desire into the next step, which is going to be the sales page, right? Now, the sales page is very different from the product page, right? The difference here is that the sales page is designed to sell the outcome. The product page is designed to sell the product. So like if there's one universal thing that you could take away from this video, that you're not selling products, you're not selling features, you're not even selling benefits, you're selling outcomes. Everybody buys a product for a specific reason. If the product just disappeared and they still got the outcome that they wanted, they would be happy. All of my marketing is centered around an outcome. What is the ultimate outcome that these people want as a result of using this product? And then from the sales page, you're then going to drive people to the order page. The whole purpose of this page is simply to collect the payment and maximize your average order value. And then I'm going to do a quick pause right here because the whole concept of profit maxing is actually centered around one universal concept. I've ran ads for a long time. I've been running ads since 2018. I spent millions and millions of dollars on ads in a lot of different niches. And what I've realized is that the universal law of scaling is that ads get more expensive the more you spend, which means your CPA, your cost per acquisition, is only going to go up. So even if you're somehow profitable on like the first day, which, you know, it can happen, it's not likely, but sometimes it does happen, the more that you try to spend, the more difficult it's going to be to scale. So the way to compensate with that is using the profit maxing principle, which is you have to make your average order value so high that it doesn't matter how high your CPA gets, you're still going to be profitable, okay? And what I mean by so high, like if you want to know if you have a good AOV or not, there's actually a really simple test that you can run. What is what I call the front end price of your product? So like the main product that you're selling, let's say it's $40, and then what is your AOV? Okay. If you know these two numbers, then you can know exactly how good you are at profit maxing. All right. Let's say your average order value in this case is like $50, right? Maybe you got some premium shipping, you have like an in-cart upsell, etc. Right? Great job. Good on you. You're still a fucking pleb because this is not a big difference. This is $10. All right. What I'm really looking for is like a minimum of a 2 to 3x difference between these. In this case, it's only a 25% difference between your front end product price and your AOV. So in a perfect world, instead of having an AOV of 50 for this particular product, right? Let's say it's like 120. And I know you're thinking like, Mark, that's so unattainable. That's not realistic. That's all bullshit because I'm doing it myself. Okay. And this is the difference. This gap right here between your front end price and your AOV tells me everything I need to know about how good you are at extracting profit from each and every one of your customers. So the reason that I stopped that whole, funnel demonstration that I did here is because most people stop as soon as they collect a payment, right? So if this is like the, we'll just do BB for basic bitch, right? And then this one is the Chad funnel because only fucking Chads run it. After you actually collect the payment right here on this step, you collect the payment on the order page, you have now unlocked the most emotional state that your customers will ever be in the history of your business. Most people just leave. They don't try to sell their customers anymore. They're missing out on so much money. And so what I do is I build out a funnel like this, not in Shopify because they don't really allow this functionality unless you have Shopify Plus, and even then it's not very good. I use either a software called Funnelish, which is what I would recommend for beginners who have never ran a funnel like this, or something like Checkout Champ, which is more sophisticated. You should have a developer on your team if you want to run it, but it's significantly more robust, right? And so this first step after you purchase is going to be an OTO. An OTO stands for one-time offer, just a fancy way to say a post-purchase upsell. Now, here's the interesting part. This one step right here, right? This is the step that has the highest, what's called price elasticity. And what I mean by that is this is the step, because your customer is in such an emotional state, this is the one step where you can extract the most amount of cash, even more than all these other steps here. This one step is the single most important step in your entire funnel process, which means, same example as before, right? I'm selling a product for $40. Your elasticity is as much as 10x. So sometimes it's even more, but 10x is typically a good rule. So which means in theory, I could sell a product as much as $400 on this OTO without sacrificing my take rate too bad. Now, am I gonna do that? Probably not, because it's hard to find a natural upsell like that really fits the context of the funnel architecture. However, I could sell a product for $100 or $200. And if I did that, for example, let's say I do sell something that's actually $200, even if I only have 10% of people that take this offer right here, that is an AOV contribution of what? $20, which means I just took my AOV from 40 to 60. That's a 50% increase right there. And that's just from one OTO, right? This is getting really messy, but imagine if the next step in the funnel was another upsell, right? Now we're on OTO 2, and maybe you don't have a $200 product, but you have a $100 product, and you get another 20% take. That's another $20 just slapped on your AOV. Now, this is all theory, right? The whole purpose of me creating this video is to show you that if your AOV is high enough, you can outscale anybody, you can scale more profitably, and that's the sole reason why so many brands out there, so many new entrepreneurs, they can never get anything off the ground because they're just going against the grain from day one. Okay, so that's like the funnel side of profit maxing. There's also the side of what I call pixel optimization. Now, this is going to be a little bit high level, but bear with me. When you set up the pixel for your store, you can set up browser side events as well as server side events. And what I want to do is I want to gamify Facebook. Okay, I only want Facebook to know that I'm acquiring customers that are very, very cheap, which means when I set up my pixel, right, I'm only going to have the purchase event actually trigger on the very first front end purchase, right? So the pixel specifically, where I'm sending that data back to Facebook through a browser side event, like through the JavaScript on your browser, is only done for the front end product, not for the upsells. Because think about it this way. If you were Facebook and you think that every single person that comes and buys my product is only worth $40, you're going to adjust the CPA based off of that information, right? The CPA is going to be lower because Facebook thinks that it's only $40 a customer, right? When in reality, let's say my average order value for this example, right, was actually $120, but Facebook doesn't know because I'm not sending any of this upsell data and all of this mumbo fucking jumbo over here. I'm not sending this back to the pixel, right? And so what I do, however, because there is a downside of that, because if Facebook is optimizing around the lowest quality buyers, then you're just going to continue to get shit buyers. And that's obviously not what we want. We want to get really high quality buyers. So what I do is I install server side tracking, typically through third-party software. For example, we use Hyros, and we use their conversions API to send that data back to the server side pixel, which means we're feeding that data back. So we're still getting quality customers, but Facebook doesn't know. And so a little bit high level, I'm happy to go into more detail in another video, but this is another, sneaky little thing that you can do to maximize the average order value without Facebook screwing you over and just jacking up your CPA like crazy. Now, in this whole funnel process, there's also another thing that is very, 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 very much so neglected, and that is email and SMS. So many people sleep on this, but I shit you not, this makes up anywhere from 15% to 20% of our daily revenue every single day. That's a substantial boost, man. Like if you're doing $10,000 a day, that's an additional $2,000 per day in your pocket with zero extra ad spend. And so what you need to do is set up some basic flows that are going to be triggered based off of where they interact with your funnel. So in this example, right, we like to collect contact information specifically on the sales page. So before people go to the order page, right, we have an email capture and an SMS capture, which means at this step right here, we now have their information. So if they go through to this page and they don't purchase, we can now remarket to them through email and SMS. I'm not joking, guys. This is some of the easiest money you can possibly make. Like you set it up once and it just prints 24/7 for you. And what this does is it gives you more room for you to play around with your ads because you now have this cushion of like 15 to 20% every single day where you can fuck up and not worry about it and not stress about it. And so for email and SMS marketing, guys, I really recommend OmniSend. This is a platform that we've worked with for a while. There's a lot of platforms out there that do this, but these guys are fantastic because they have both email and SMS integrated, and they work fantastic with Shopify. So if you want to check them out, I highly recommend you just click the second link in the description and you can check them out. You can see they've worked with a lot of very reputable brands. It's a pretty large, successful company. So definitely a competitor, somebody like Klaviyo, but very, very good software. I highly recommend you guys check them out. And please, for the love of God, just set up some basic, like at a minimum, some abandoned cart email and SMS to recapture people that did not purchase, like at a bare minimum. Other than that, you can get much more creative, and OmniSend here, they can help with that. But I'm telling you guys, number one, from experience, and number two, from my friends who have also direct experience, this is the structure that is scaling right now on cold traffic. Because with this chat funnel structure, you can control the perception of value. It's not like somebody sees an ad and you immediately try to sell them. When you do that, you're going to be capped with how expensive you can really charge and still be profitable. But with this method, with the chat funnel, if your AOV is high enough, your conversion rate is high enough with the structure, because you're kind of selling people subconsciously, this is really how you're able to scale so successfully, especially in more competitive markets like health and beauty, for example, without just Facebook screwing you over. And as you can see, it got really messy really quickly because, and this is just me drawing on a whiteboard. Imagine actually doing this in real life. It gets very complicated. And that's why we built something like Brand Builders Academy, which is my mentorship program that I own with Alex Fedodoff, where we'll actually show you how to do all this yourself. Not only create the ads, which is one of the most important pieces, but set up a funnel structure that is designed for you to scale. So if you're interested in that, you can click the first link in the description to see if you're a good fit. We don't accept everybody. That's why we have an application in the first place. But if you're interested, you've got some capital set aside, you can click the first link in the description and check it out. And to cap off the video, if you're not following me on Twitter, man, you are missing out. I started posting here specifically only like B2B content, more higher level stuff. So if you have a brand, you want to scale, you are scaling, give me a follow. Other than that, y'all, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.